that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody. I need a weapon. And welcome back to the Halo Expanded Universe. Now, I made an error, so I have a few things for you here today. Kind of a short story, extravaganza, I guess. I just want to use some big word, so there you go. This is also still at 4 a.m. in the morning, but I have a morning shift, so I gotta leave in an hour anyway, so perfect time to do this, I suppose. So, there's a Halo comic called Collateral Damage, which, I guess I missed on the timeline that I was looking at. There's a lot of stuff on that page. And so, John 117, Master Chief, is not Master Chief. He's still a petty officer, which means it has to happen before Silent Storm. So, my apologies in advance if you've been reading these along with me in my timeline order, and you're like, Alex, you're talking about a story that happened before Silent Storm, now you gotta go back and read that? I know, I'm sorry. I have failed you as a YouTuber. I should kill myself and die. That is my bad. That's the only thing I missed, though. The rest of it is still in chronological order. But I don't have too much to say about it. It is before Silent Storm. However, the story does take place 48 hours, so about 2 days after Samuel, again, from Fall of Reach, died. Spoilers for Fall of Reach. But if you're going chronological order, that's going to happen. Unless you're being anal about it and looking at the time placement specifically and cutting where you're reading said stories to make it sure it's perfect. But I'm not doing that to myself. Let me get the worst thing out of the way first. The art, I hate it. It looks like a joke. It looks like a joke. It looks like those things we saw in Star Wars Tales sometimes in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. If I was being kind, I'd say it looks like Jedi vs. Sith, the comic about Darth Bane. And I hate the art in that too, but I think the art in that looks better than here. The art is horrendous to me. Now, let me state for the record, I don't want to sound too mean here. I couldn't do better. I write stick figures. I can't draw. But it looks so childish. Like, maybe that's the intention. But when I think gritty Halo, especially in this time period, I don't get that vibe from how it's drawn here. So I just find myself not enjoying it at all. And that, art is subjective to the beholder, so other people might really dig it. I was not one of those people. I'm used to art like from, again, we'll use the Star Wars Expanded Universe for example. Republic, Legacy, Dawn of the Jedi. But if you want to use, that's really detailed, but if you want to use something a little bit less intense, Tales of the Jedi. Like literally any of those comics. I prefer over what this looks like. But that's like the biggest thing. What is the story actually about though? Basically, there are a covenant on this planet along with a bunch of insurrectionists, and John convinces the insurrectionists to help them because the covenant is the bigger threat. And the insurrectionists are a bit mixed on this, but the leader's like, no, he's right. There's no point in fighting about politics or about our rights and freedoms when the covenant are going to take that all away. Right now, until this threat is over, our responsibility is to help end this threat, not bicker and fight over each other. So they help out, John and everything. They do their mission. They do their assignment. All's well. John gets off with the blue team. There's a lot of action in there and little things that don't really matter that happen in between all that. But that's the big gist. And John promises to come back for them because they have to leave right then and there. and the UNSC says that's not happening. We have orders not to. And then John gets mad. He's like, you're just going to leave them there to die? And that's exactly what happens. They're all going to die by the Covenant, because now they're coming in waves to get revenge. And Halsey's like, yeah, but you got your Spartan team out. And you accomplished the mission. Everything else, just collateral damage. And that's the end of the story. It's decent. Just hate the art. Then we have Halo Wars, the video game. Now this is an RTS game, which is a real-time strategy. So if you're not into real-time strategy, you will not get behind this game. However, we are in the magical age of YouTube, where you can look up all of the cutscenes on YouTube. And if you need more context, you can watch a Let's Play and get your full context there if you're not a real-time strategy player. We learned that this is 5 years after First Contact since the novel Contact Harvest. So we've jumped a few years since Oblivion by Troy Denning. The game actually starts in Harvest. It starts with the UNSC reclaiming that planet, which they do manage to do. It kind of jumps around a whole bunch of areas, though. We get introduced to the ship Spirit of Fire and its captain, James Cutter. He's pretty cool. We also get introduced to Forge, the main soldier of this game. He's not a Spartan or anything, or an ODST, he's just a normal soldier guy. But Forge in this game is voiced by Nolan North. For those video game players, he's been in a lot of stuff, but some most notable, he was Desmond Miles in Assassin's Creed. He's Nathan Drake from Uncharted. And for those of you who are losers like me, if you've ever seen the CW show Pretty Little Liars, Spencer Hastings' father. So, you've learned some things about me you didn't know. Yes, I've watched almost all of it. Shoot me. It's good. Piss off, okay? It's can be cringe, but it's good. But yeah, so we follow Forge. He's the guy you play as primarily. We also see a new Arbiter. Now, if you've been following along with my my reviews, I reviewed Halo Wars Genesis, which was a little comic that came with the collector's edition. Of course, I didn't have that. I read it online. But that introduced the Arbiter's backstory. So this is not the Arbiter from Halo 2. This is a different guy. But we get introduced to him in this game, which is cool. We also head over to the Arcadia Colony. I'm just mentioning it because we've had that place mentioned a few times in the books and short stories now. This would be the first time you got introduced to Red Team. Of course, chronologically, you'd have met them before, but publication-wise, this would have been the first time you met Red Team, which is a Spartan team led by Jerome. And then, all their adventures, everything that's going on, they have to end up going to this mysterious planet, this mysterious ancient Forerunner planet that happens to have the Flood on it. I'm a little mixed on this because it seems like nobody's aware of what this is by the time of Halo CE, but they encounter it here pretty early on in the war. And this is a Bungie era game, so you can't blame 343 for this. However, again, this was on a planet that they'd never seen before. So if this was their only encounter with them on this one planet, they may have chalked it up to being native life to this planet. And that is a possibility. They don't directly state that, but that makes sense. And maybe they reconnect the dots later when they encounter them again in the original Halo game. I don't know. That makes sense to me. But another thing is, the Halo rings went off. So how are the Flood on this planet? This may be a later retcon, but from what I can understand, this Forerunner world is one of the Shield worlds. Like from Halo 4 or the Forerunner trilogy with um, with the didact and wanting to use shield worlds instead of um, the rings, because that would kill all sentient life in the galaxy. So, if I understand it correctly, this is an ancient shield world that was a flood research place, and all the Forerunners are long dead, and now we've got this flood existing here. Of course, UNSC takes care of it. They only managed to make a proto-grave mine, which is like early in their development. So they took care of it quick enough to where it didn't become a threat. But I'm going to assume that, again, they chalked it up to being native to the planet because it's the only place they find them at till Halo CE, and I can accept that, I suppose. Or I'm just coping hard. The big crux of this game is that, you know, they're kind of hopping across different planets, figuring stuff out, but the Covenant wants these ancient Forerunner ships. And these ancient Forerunner ships, if the Covenant gets acquired of them, the war's probably lost. Because the Forerunner ships are so advanced, the UNSC's not going to be able to stop it. I mean, already the Covenant ships are more advanced than the ships that the UNSC has, so like if they get those Forerunner ships, they're done. But the UNSC also doesn't want to use it themselves, because regardless, at some point, the Covenant can get their hands on it. So they decide the best course of action is to destroy these Forerunner ships, so that way no one can use them. So that's ultimately the big crux of the game. And so we get to near the end of the game, we get this awesome moment with Jerome and his Spartans leading a charge, stopping elites from coming through, and then we have Forge, who's just a normal soldier, going head to head with the Arbiter, which was pretty cool. And he does manage to win. And then instead of making a Spartan do it, he sacrifices himself to make sure that everything goes according to plan. And so the world blows up. We assume that Forge is dead, and all the heroes make it off, the Spartans and everything, and then Spirit of Fire crew goes into cryosleep. However, they get lost while they're in cryosleep, and it is presumed that they are dead, and we won't actually see them again into Halo Wars 2, which happens long after Halo 5. So it's going to be a long time before we see these characters again, but they are still alive, they're just in cryosleep. And that's pretty much it for the Halo Wars campaign, which is pretty decent, and I enjoyed it. And then we move on to two short stories. One very, very short, and this you'll find in Halo Fractures, which is called The Ballad of Hamash Beamish by Frank O'Connor. Frank O'Connor is the big guy with the mainline video games. I think he's a writer, one of the writers. It's just a poem about this guy Hamash, who there was a malfunction on the ship that he was on, and his cryopod opened extremely early, because it was going to take like 10 years or something to reach the Corbeil Academy, again, from Forward on to Dawn. And so, by the time he actually makes it, he's close to 30. So he's a washout, he doesn't get to become a soldier. He becomes a janitor, who's a little bit insane, but nobody bothers him. So, again, none of the timelines put this before Forward on the Dawn, even though this is technically a prequel, but I guess if you're counting this as an in-universe like poem, then I guess you can accept it here. But basically, Frank O'Connor, who's a big person with the games, wanted to have a little cameo. So there's a part of the movie, of Forward on to Dawn, where two kids are fighting, and a janitor comes to break it up looking absolutely insane. And that's Frank O'Connor. He just wanted a little cameo in the movie. And I guess Frank O'Connor decided to explain why he looks so insane in that shot. And so he wrote this little poem to explain that he was supposed to be a kid at the academy, but his cryopod broke, so he ended up having to live on the ship for 10 years and just kind of grew up and went insane by himself for 10 years. And now he's just a janitor who is most likely dead now, considering the fact that Master Chief said that the people he saved were the only 3 people left alive on the planet. So we will miss you, Hamash. Thank you for your janitorial duties. It was a decent little thing. And then lastly, we have in Halo Evolutions, Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian. Again, by Frank O'Connor. Cancer. Don't worry about it. Just a quick procedure, that's all. The one benefit to the Halo timeline, besides the Covenant invading and the insurrectionists, we have a cure to cancer. So, this Scottish man named Baird goes under to get the procedure done. When he awakes, the AI lets Baird know that everyone he knows and has been serving with is now dead. The Covenant have boarded, and the only reason he survived is because he was under for the procedure, which is complete. He's free of cancer, but there's Covenant all over his ship. They also mentioned the prototype armor, so this is somewhat connected to the Halo anime collection, Halo Legends, and the short story Prototype within it, because they mentioned Ghost. So that's just a cool little continuity connection there. It makes those Halo Legends things a little bit more important. But anyway, so Baird is tasked by the AI, because right now with the way that the Covenant has messed up the ship, that the AI cannot access her means of erasing all the data, which would lead them to Earth, and to blow up the ship, because it follows Asimov's first law. Asimov, of course, Isaac Asimov, who wrote the Robots and the Foundation series. But she cannot intentionally kill human life. It's one of the rules of AI. So she needs permission. The Covenant don't matter, but because of how they're messing up with her hardware, she can't make that calculation leap. So Baird goes out, attacks some dudes, gets stabbed by an elite, then blacks out, is given a bunch of drugs by the AI, gets back up, goes to complete his mission, convinces the elite and the Covenant that I just want to be able to leave in peace. I'll give you the codes and everything. Just let me leave. Just let me live. And so he able to get the AI back in charge. And with all the strength that this Scotsman can muster, he slaps the hell out of an elite, breaking his jaw, and the elite immediately goes back by slicing off Baird's head. But it's okay, because he already gave the AI everything she needs. And she tells him, you have 4 minutes to evacuate. And as the elites and the Covenant are scrambling to leave the ship, she says, just kidding. No, I don't need a countdown. It's completely unnecessary. I was just joking. And then she blows up the whole ship and they all die. It's pretty decent. I'm going to leave a link in the description. 343 did make a little animation of this particular short story. They made him a bit beefier than I imagined Baird would be. I imagined him as like this, fit, but kind of this more skinny Scotsman. But we got this really bulky dude, which is fine. But it doesn't, it's not really a spoiler. It doesn't really ruin anything for you in terms of the wider Halo lore. It's just an interesting little story set during the war. So I'll leave a link in the description in case you don't want to buy an entire book of short stories unless you're really committed to Halo. So you can watch that short story in the description below. And yeah, it was just really fun. It gave a little nice characterization of Baird in terms of his humor and in terms of what he was going through. I mean, basically after that wound that he got the first time, he was going to die. He was just running off adrenaline and a bunch of drugs that she pumped into him so he could complete the mission. So he was going to die regardless. But no, he powered through the mission and finished it. Speaks volumes. And we got little moments between him and his mom that were interlaced in there and as like memories. So that was cool. It was just a good little short story, And it's not a happy world, Halo, like according to this being connected to the Prototype, we got that whole depressing Legends episode happening right around the corner, or already happening as this is happening. And again, sure, they stopped the Covenant from finding information about Earth, and they could kill a few Covenant, but still, all those people on the ship are dead. It's not like Baird saved them. Baird himself gets beheaded by the end of the story. The only resolution is that the Covenant died too. But this isn't really a happy ending. So, overall, really good. Up next, I have another novel for you, as we'll get into Halo: The Cole Protocol. Till then, let's finish the fight.